Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Motive, Social Motivation for the Creative Class. I'm your host, Tim Fulton, sitting down with Tony Gatto, the principal of the Arts and College Preparatory Academy, a charter high school here in Central Ohio. Tony, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I kind of want to start with tough questions.
Okay.
I know as a student of Columbus City Schools and as a semi-liberal Democrat, that there was a time that I was certainly against charter schools in terms of their idea. I feel as though Democrats gave that battle up, at least in this state. I'm just saying I don't like you, basically. But
Yeah, I'm used to it.
I think that there are a lot of perceptions about charter schools. They funnel money away from public school systems. They're private entities that make money off of things that we have to educate our children, and someone is making money on that, and that's not a good thing. Also, right. Also, that they're, I think, I'm confident in saying that this is a misperception, that they're doing a disservice to the children by virtue of those two other things, that it's a money-making enterprise, and hence, the kids aren't getting everything that they could get. Can I get your stump speech on why I'm wrong, or why those perceptions are wrong?
Some of them are not wrong. Some of them are, I think, held back from when charter schools first started, because one of the first ones in Columbus especially, like, kind of went up in flames and was all over the news for misappropriation of funds, and that was what Columbus's introduction to charter schools was. So we've had kind of a fight to fight since then. I'll address like the 3 points you made. The money follows the kid, basically, but not all of it does. And first I should say that we're public schools, so we're completely public. We get all of our money from the state, some from the federal government. What we don't get are local tax dollars. So let's say we have kids in our school from over 20 districts in Columbus. So we'll look at like a Grandview kid that decides to come to ACPA. We get the state foundation money that follows that kid, but the money that's raised in Grandview stays in Grandview. So then that kind of like dispels the myth that we're for profit and we're stealing kids, because actually the district school gets to keep a portion of the money. So they're educating your children on more money than we are.
So, sorry, I started with a really big question.
It's pretty complicated.
Should have started with a slightly smaller question in order to get there. Tell us, Arts and College Preparatory Academy is a high school that services grades 9 through 12 with a focus on the arts and college prep.
Yes.
At its basic level, anything else we should review about that?
About what we are?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of our founding principles, the story behind ACPA is that our founder's daughter went to a district school and was bullied because she was different. Whatever differences we have that make us different for each other and kids get bullied for, that it still exists in high school. And so those kids are not being served in their schools. And so the purpose of our school, when it first started, was to serve those kids and to acknowledge that kids learn differently, like Will was saying. There are a lot of kids at our school that don't stay in their seats, and we don't make them. There are a lot of kids that learn visually. There are a lot of kids that learn traditionally too, but there are also a lot of kids that are into the arts, and they need to have those programs to flourish themselves and learn how to be creative, learn creative processes that they can apply to their academic classes. That's important, those critical thinking skills that you learn when you're taking arts classes.
How often are you encountering sort of this charter, I'll call it a backlash or those perceptions of what a charter school is, and how do you, is it simply what you did just now and say, well, it's actually not what you're talking about. We're not taking local tax dollars away. I believe the state funding model for local schools is still unconstitutional at the
A lot of people do, yeah, because of the districting.
Well, and the state Supreme Court has said multiple times you have to fix this, and the legislature hasn't.
Right. But they'll fix a lot of other things about charter schools.
Exactly. Well, they would. Right. So, being under the gun as a charter school, what is the lay of the land there?
Well, for us, we are considered high performing, so it's a little easier. Except we do kind of get lumped into. I don't know. I think over the weekend there was an article in the Dispatch about graduation rates, and it was comparing charter schools and district schools, urban schools especially. And I think it said that 19 high schools in Ohio have an A on their report card for graduation rate, 4-year graduation rate. And then 2 of those 19 schools were charter schools. We're one of them.
Boo.
Right. So I have this data that I can use and say, well, we're doing it differently, and we don't fit into that category. So don't say all charter schools. So because it's not.
While we're on all charter schools, though, if only 2 of those charter schools had an A on that 4-year report card.
2 of the 19 schools in Ohio.
2 of the 19 schools that have
Urban schools.
A's on those graduation report cards. Do you happen to know how many urban charter schools, charter high schools there are in the state of Ohio?
No.
A lot.
Yeah, but less than there are district schools.
Fair.
I would think it's proportional. I should look at those numbers if I'm talking about it, but I would think that it's proportional to the amount of charter schools there are compared to the amount of district schools there are, urban schools.
The point I'm making is, while your high school is great, or on paper is great, sorry, I'm a liberal Democrat, it may be fair to say that the model, that something is wrong with it. May be fair to say.
Yeah.
Talk about sort of what, we've talked about sort of what the point of charter schools is.
Right. So I'll talk about that in a second, but I also want to, when all these statistics come out in the paper, what they don't tell you is that there are, the way that a graduation rate is determined is the clock starts when a kid starts their freshman year, and then they have to get out of high school in 4 years or they don't graduate. So let's say a student goes to some other school for 2 years, doesn't get a lot of credits, transfers to ACPA, and we get them out in 3 years. Then they count against us in the graduation rate. So another school failed them somewhere along the line, they transferred. We get to, that data gets reflected in our state report card. And there are lots of reasons why kids change schools. If you think about just the concept of school choice, there aren't a lot of schools in Columbus that are alternative, that are suiting the needs for different kinds of kids and different kinds of learners. And so that's kind of where charter schools came from. We're supposed to be hubs of innovation. We're supposed to be doing things differently. And we're supposed to be sharing those successes with the district schools. And we do that, but we also get kind of a, like, we don't really want to hear what you're doing. So it becomes difficult. So then we just do what we do because we like doing it, and we're doing good things for kids, and it works.
ACPA,
Stay out of the politics.
let's step back from it. As an adult that's been in the school as a substitute teacher, I was really surprised by how the students interacted with each other, because there was every variety of kid. There was like the popular kid, the kid who sits in the corner and reads a book, the kid who acts out constantly. But none of the kids got called out by the other kids. And even my first day there, I think I was substituting for choir, which is kids that are going to be loud and boisterous anyway. I felt like a bully in that, as a kid who grew up going to city schools and getting bullied to an extent, felt like a bully saying, you need to sit down. Like, I can't believe these kids aren't self-regulating each other to an extent. Talk sort of about the philosophy that is behind that, because I think it's interesting, sort of the how you address behavior and how you address correcting.
Discipline, we call it.
Discipline.
We'll put it in quotes when we write about it, and we'll do the air quotes when we talk about
Discipline.
it. Right. Well, if you're talking just about how we do discipline, we very deliberately decided not to be punitive in our discipline policies because we don't think that arbitrary consequences to behaviors really solves any kind of problem. So if you're, a lot of problems arise from conflict. So if you're just going to say, you're having a conflict, we're going to punish you because you have this conflict and you didn't handle it very well because you're a teenager, what are we actually teaching them? We're conditioning them maybe, but even that doesn't work. It just makes them angry and more resistant. So instead, we focus on our values, and our values are communication, problem solving, being nice to each other, respecting diversity, awareness. So when we're talking with a kid that's had a conflict with another kid or a teacher, we want to explore how that conflict arises, why it arises, the emotions behind it, and how to better communicate your way through solving it instead of just saying, go to detention, where nothing happens. And I've been working there for 14 years, so I've kind of been out of the other schools and how they do discipline. I don't really know that other schools aren't doing that, but I read other schools' handbooks, and I see a big list of behaviors and level 1, level 2, level 3, and the consequences that are attached to that, and it makes absolutely no sense to me at all. I don't think it solves anything, and why wouldn't we teach our kids how to communicate and resolve conflict instead of punishing it?
The school at this point is 400 students. You have 100 kids in every class, 9 through 12. Talk a little bit about, I know you've brought one of our previous featured creatives, Sharon, on as an educator. Sort of talk about your future plans for the school and where you see yourselves.
Okay, so we've been growing. This is our 4th year of a growth plan that we set out to do 5 years ago. And we've been adding students, and we've also been expanding our building. So we were able to acquire a building on the east side. And I should probably go back to addressing profit, not-for-profit in a minute.
Sure.
Because we saved a lot of money to do that. And we don't make a profit. And nobody makes a profit off of us. But as we're growing, we just want to make the environment really spectacular for kids. So we're bringing in people like Sharon. We're bringing in people that have a perspective in the community. We want to make community partnerships. We want to bring in creative folks that our kids can learn from and be mentored by, and then become part of the community in Columbus that we value. So we see it as an educational opportunity for you all to get involved, come out to the school, see what's going on, propose something. I think Sharon came aboard through a musical. You started working, she was a musician in our spring musical, and then was just around, and she was teaching after school workshops, and kids loved her, and I found out that she does design work, so I'm like, all right, Sharon needs to be here. Let's figure out a way to give her a full-time job, and with all those things, and she has that now. So, but she's a tremendous influence on our kids, and we know that there are people that aren't traditional teachers that can have that kind of impact and value with our students. So we're looking for that. We actively seek it out.
You want to address profit, nonprofit?
We're a nonprofit organization, 501c3, and all charter schools are. There are some that elect to hire a management company and pay them some percentage. And there are some that pay their management company a percentage that's up to 30% of their state foundation money to do the finances of the school, payroll, those kind of businessy things. There are some that pay management companies 90% of their state foundation money, and they do everything. They do the hiring, they provide the curriculum, anything and everything. But then once that money gets paid to that company, it's no longer public record. because you've hired a for-profit company to run your school. We don't pay any, we service out some services like treasury and payroll and things like that, but we don't have a management company. So all of our money is public record, everything that we do with it. So in that way, we're not for profit. And the school is never for profit. Sometimes the management companies are. But I think there's a lot of backlash against that, and it's starting to change. So there are management companies that are popping up that are reducing that amount of profit and what they do in the school, so that that perception is starting to dwindle, hopefully.
Your model, you received a grant from the Department of Education, and there was a resulting report that can be seen at
ACPAvoice.org.
ACPAvoice.org, ACPAvoice.org, that people can check out in terms of your model and also how you do address discipline there. Anything else about ACPA or charter schools in general that you think is a perception that could be addressed?
I think we've covered all the big public ones.
Money, kids not being educated.
Yeah, well, our kids are being educated, I know that. And when you look at state report cards, you have to realize that sometimes you're looking at a school that is only servicing kids with special needs, and so their report card might not be as high. Or you're looking at a school that has a partnership with a college where their kids are in high school for 5 years, but in college, part of that's college education. But because they're in high school for 5 years, none of them graduate, and so they have a 0% graduation rate. But they value what they're doing for their kids instead of that letter on
showing up on the state report card.
Right.
Great.
So there are lots of scenarios that you may not know when you look at those things.
Tony, thank you so much for your time.
You're certainly welcome.